Welcome to Free Network Configuration Manager training again. And today we'll be talking about configuration backup and disaster recovery. And in our next session, we'll be talking about configlets, compliance, role-based access control, and reports. So we have a panelist who will be answering all your questions. So if you have any doubts or questions when the training is taking place, kindly ask your questions in the chat panel. You will get immediate responses. Also, don't worry if you have a poor internet connection or if you're not able to stay till the end. We will mail the training presentation video along with the PPT. My name is Renuka Govindarajan and I will be your trainer for today's session. I've been working with Network Configuration Manager and Manage Engine for quite some time, and I hope this session will be useful for you. So Network Configuration Manager is a part of IT Operations Management Solutions. So we have 6 other solutions in IT Operations Management. One is Op Manager. Most of you all might be knowing about Op Manager. It's our performance monitoring solution. And with NetFlow Analyzer, you can take care of your bandwidth and traffic monitoring. And then we have Firewall Analyzer, which will help you analyze firewall rules, logs, policies, and ways to safeguard your network and your firewall. Then we have OpUtils, which is an IP address and switch port management solution. We also have Applications Manager for taking care of applications and server needs. So we also have a 6-in-1 solution, which is called Op Manager Plus, and it takes care of all that is shown on the screen, and it's like a 6-in-1 kit. So yeah, let's get into the training. One last time, I want to ensure if I'm audible. So please give me a heads up so I'll be able to start the training. Okay, so we have received a few confirmations that I am audible, and let's start the session. So the agenda for today's session is why we need a configuration management tool, requirements for installing Network Configuration Manager. We'll see how you can discover Network Configuration Manager into your network environment, how to give proper credentials, and then we'll be talking about configuration backup and uploading configuration backups. We'll also see how you can detect changes which is happening in your network configurations, who has made what kind of change, and all sorts of things. Then we'll see whether your network configurations are vulnerable, or if there are a lot of bugs, or if it needs to be taken care of. So we'll be talking about that in firmware vulnerability management. Lastly, we'll be talking about disaster recovery, where we'll see how we can use Network Configuration Manager to make sure that after a particular recovery or after a particular disaster, your network configurations are resurrected, and also how to prepare your configurations to face something which is, which tends to affect your network device's performance. So yeah, so before we get into the product, the UI and details, I'll tell you why a tool is needed for configuration management. With the growing business needs, a lot of configuration changes take place on a daily basis. For example, if you are adding a new device to your network environment, you will have to make a change in your configuration. So, like that, the changes are a continuous process. You keep making a lot of configuration changes, and as we are all humans, it's very, very easy to make mistakes. And once we make those mistakes, we may not even realize that this has gone wrong. So in that case, we need some kind of a monitor to tell us, no, you are wrong. You made a human error and it's natural for you to fix it. So in that case, a tool is very important. So with Network Configuration Manager or a configuration management solution, you will be able to reduce configuration errors. Also, you'll be able to detect changes in real time wherever you are. Even if you're not physically present in your network environment, you'll be able to notice what kind of changes are being made in your network environment by receiving alerts. Also, in critical devices, you don't need a lot of configuration changes to be applied to them. In that case, you can ask or block certain changes to be made to the network devices which are critical, such as a router or a firewall device, which is critical. Also, as an IT infrastructure and as a part of an IT infrastructure, it is very, very important to stay compliant to internal standards and also the industry's common norms. So in that case, you can't really go and check if we are being compliant to what's given, what the normal rule is. In that case, you can use Network Configuration Manager, which will help you check if you are in line with the industry and internal standards. And if you're not if you're not compliant, Network Configuration Manager will immediately alert you that you have a violation in your device, and it can cause adverse reactions. So in that case, you can easily rectify it. So yeah, basically you need a network configuration manager or a management tool to streamline the maintenance process. So yeah, what does NCM do? Okay, so yeah guys, one more thing, if you have any questions, do ask on the chat panel and our experts will give you an answer immediately. Okay. Yeah, so what does NCM do? Network Configuration Manager helps to maintain the entire configuration management process. That's one thing. But as we saw earlier, we can use Network Configuration Manager to stay compliant, to manage configuration changes. You can also schedule configuration tasks. For example, if there is a network device and you need to constantly keep backing it up, in that case, you can just schedule it like NCM just back it up every Wednesday or every month. That can be done with job scheduling. We have real-time change detection, so you will be able to receive alerts via SNMP traps or mails and also syslogs if you enable alerts. So let's say you want to be alerted whenever there's a change made in your network environment. In that case, you can just give real-time change detection. Also, NCM helps to control who can access what kind of device. Not everybody can access all sorts of devices in your network environment. You can achieve that with Network Configuration Manager. We also have remote firmware upgrade firmware remotely, and we'll get into the details. So the minimum system requirements for Network Configuration Manager to function in your environment are 2 GHz dual-core processor, 4 GB RAM, 100 GB storage, PostgreSQL, MSQL, Windows and Linux is suitable for network configuration manager to function. Also, I would like to tell you that these specifications are for an environment with 50 devices only. If your network configuration, if your environment consists of more than 50 devices, you can refer to the system requirements. So guys, we'll be sending you the PPT within 2 or 3 days. So you can use the links from the PPT. It's all hyperlinked. Yeah, the ports and protocols required for network configuration manager. The protocols which are required are SSH, SCP, TFTP. The ports which are needed for network configuration manager to function properly are 69 TFTP, 22 SSH SCP, 514 syslog, 13306 Postgre database, and 8080 HTTP. Without further delay, let's get into the topic of the day. How to discover network configuration manager. You can use SNMP profiles V1, V2, V3 while taking care of the discovery process. So in network configuration manager, there is a discovery engine. This discovery engine sends out SNMP requests to all the nearby devices which have SNMP enabled in them. So upon receiving the request, those devices will send a sysobject ID. This sysobject ID will be received by network configuration manager, and it will try to match the received sysobject ID with that of a default sysobject ID. When a match is found, the device will be added and associated with the corresponding device template. If a match is not found, a device cannot be added automatically, but it will be added if you can, make it manual. So all that we'll be seeing in detail. So network configuration manager can be discovered using manual addition and SNMP discovery method. So SNMP discovery is very easy because if you have devices which have SNMP enabled in them, you can use that and discover devices. If there are devices which don't have SNMP enabled in them, you can use the manual addition method. I will show this to you in the UI. This is the UI of Network Configuration Manager, and this is the inventory, which gives you a gist of what's happening in your network. So to discover a device, go to Settings, click on Discovery, choose Network Discovery. So here you can see we are now going to discover devices which have SNMP enabled in them. You can either discover a single IP address or an IP range, and also as you can import a CSV file which consists of all the devices and its IP address. In bulk, you can be able to import it and take care of it. So yeah. So before discovering a device, you need to create a credential profile. Now I'm just going to use the public credential profile, and I'm going to discover an IP range. I can use V4 or V6. So let me just use V4. 138. Yes, so click on discover. It will take you to the discovery report tab. So you can see the live progress of what's happening in your discovery mechanism. So here we've already discovered certain devices, and that's the report. This is the current report. It's now processed. So let's open it. Yeah, so I'm getting a message that these devices already exist in the inventory. Okay, that can be because I've repeated IP address and certain devices are not reachable. So here I've received a message that certain devices cannot be reached by NCM. I will tell you in detail why this happens, but right now I'll tell you how you can add it to the inventory even though it's not discovered. So click on the device and give add to inventory. Also make sure that I just want to tell you that this will work only if you are familiar with the credentials to that particular device. So you need to provide the series, model, the location, etc. So when you click on add, the device will be successfully added in Network Configuration Manager's inventory. So if you go to the inventory, all the devices which you've discovered will appear here. So that's how you discover devices using SNMP discovery method. Now I'll teach you how to do a manual discovery. Click on the plus symbol and here you can provide the host name or the IP address, the vendor name. You can select from the drop down. You can choose a device template. So we'll be talking about device templates in like 5 minutes. So please hold on. Also provide the series, the model, etc. and click on add. In case you don't want to add every device individually, you can import it in bulk using a text file. So that can be done by clicking on import devices from a text file, and if you have a file you just have to drop it here. Also, while dropping it in bulk, make sure that all the contents are given in this format: host name, IP address separated by a comma, with a device template name separated by series and model. So only if it's in this format, Network Configuration Manager will be able to import it in its console. So yeah, we saw how you can discover devices which have SNMP enabled in them, and also how you can manually discover devices. Next, we'll be talking about the possible errors which you can face during discovery. So when we discovered SNMP enabled devices, we got an error, right? That this particular device cannot be added to Network Configuration Manager. It can happen if those devices don't have SNMP enabled in them, and even if they have SNMP enabled in them, the read community it, it may be incorrect. So in that case, make sure that the device has SNMP enabled by logging into the device using an external emulator, a telnet or a putty, and then make sure that the SNMP is enabled in the device. In case of an incorrect SNMP read community, make sure you double check if the read community is properly configured. Also, a device sysobject ID may not be mapped with any device template. So in that case, you have to make sure that the sysobject ID is mapped by going to sysobject ID finder in settings. Also, another issue can be due to device template being unavailable for that particular device type. In that case, you can add or create a new device template and associate it to the device. If it's a very tedious process, you can just contact NCM support, and based on your requirements, they'll get you a device template ready. So yeah, what are the device templates and what are they used for? So even during the discovery process, we saw a lot about device templates. It kept appearing again and again. So what are these device templates? So device templates are vendor-specific configuration commands, which can be useful if you want to execute commands such as configuration backup, configuration upload, enabling, disabling syslog change detection, fetching hardware information, etc. So why are configuration device templates very important? So let us say you have devices from different vendors. For example, you may have Cisco devices and then Juniper devices. Cisco devices will have a different configuration command. and Juniper device may have a different configuration command. So in that case, you don't have to remember each and every command. In that case, you can use device templates. So let's create a device template with a name Cisco 2020. So all the devices which fall under the vendor Cisco and all the commands which are Cisco's will appear in that particular device template. So it makes your task easier because most of the Cisco devices have almost the same commands, and you can use a single device template and add multiple devices to it. So by executing a device template, you can save time by not manually entering operational commands for every single device in your network environment. So this is why device template is very useful. So yeah, let me show this to you in the UI. Go to settings, click on device management and choose device templates. So here you can see a lot of device templates which are present in Network Configuration Manager from different vendors. This one's a FortiGate, this one's HP, this one's Cisco. Yeah. So you can, if you want to create a new device template, you can clone an existing device template. For example, for Cisco Modular Access Router, there is a device template. So I want to create something which is similar to this. So in that case, all I have to do is click on clone. And you can also export certain device templates, edit it, and then import it back to NCM. If you don't need a device template, you can just trash it. So yeah, so previously we had in previous network configuration manager builds, we were not able to edit an existing device template, and it was a major problem. So now this has been fixed. You can edit an existing device template anytime. So also make sure that you're in the latest build. So this is the latest build number 12.5.228. If you're not in the same build as us, you can give an upgrade request and upgrade to the latest build. So I'm going to show you how to edit a device template. Click on the device template you want to edit, and here you can, here these are all the details, and click on next. Sorry, I'm going to show you a different example. Please bear with me. I'll show you an example which has a lot of commands, so it'll be easier for you to understand. Okay, so Cisco iOS router has 50 devices, so let me just select it. So I'm going to edit commands for a Cisco router. Yes, this is the one. So we have a lot of commands here. Network Configuration Manager allows you to select a protocol. For each of these protocol, you will be able to edit the configuration commands. So for example, for SSH Telnet, you have the commands for backing up a running configuration, to back up a startup configuration, a command for enabling syslog. Here's another command for change detection, for hardware details, etc. If you don't want any command, you can just delete it. Then to edit it, click on the pencil symbol. So you can edit the command here. And here's a timeout value you give for the command execution to take place. And then what is this prompt and prompt action ID? So during automatic command execution, there will be prompts which appear, and those prompts will need an answer like a yes or no. So in that case, if Network Configuration Manager will check if a prompt is mapped to a prompt action ID. Here you can see the prompt action ID. So if the prompt action ID is configured as yes, then the command execution will go to the next step. If it's configured as no, that particular execution will be skipped. So in that case, you need to make sure that you have a prompt action ID mapped to every prompt. So certain prompts don't need an action ID, so in that case, it's not necessary. But for certain prompts, you can give a lot of, prompt action ID. This is a yes or no prompt where an input will be a yes or a no. And here these are other prompt action IDs for different prompts. So yeah, also make sure that every prompt, which is very important for a command to go to the next place, has a prompt action ID configured. If it's not configured, then that particular command execution won't take place. Also, we have a backup response thing where you can, back up a particular configuration command. This is like backing up parts of a configuration. For example, I don't want this particular terminal length to be backed up. In that case, you don't have to enable the checkbox. But I need the show running configuration command backed up. So in that case, I just have to give the backup response as true. So yeah, and you can also add more than one command line and delete command lines. So this is the same for all sorts of protocols. So for TFTP and SCP protocols, there won't be a backup response. So here we saw a backup response, right? For Telnet or SSH. That is because a Telnet or a SSH cannot have a configuration downloaded in a file format. So in that case, you need to give a backup response as true or false. But TFTP and SCP has, has an option to they are file transfer protocols, so you can have them in the form of configuration file. So in that case, you don't need a backup response. So that option has not been given, but otherwise the other commands are as same as that of SSH or a telnet. So once this is over, click on next. And here you have to provide the sysobject ID for every device. In case you don't know a particular sysobject ID, you can query the device to find out. So you just have to provide the username to find out the sysobject ID. So that is all about device templates. And then yeah, once you're at the end of it, just click on save to save this entire along with the sysobject ID and the command. So you will be able to save the entire thing. So going to device templates, you will see that whatever device template you edited will be here, and you can also share device templates across the globe. So these are the shared device templates. So some of our users have shared their templates with us. So this can be useful because it's like a closed network. So once you share it, you can also make sure that other people who are in need of it can use it. In case you need a new device template, you just have to give request new template option, and our system administrators will be able to give you a new device template based on your requirements. Moving on to backup credentials. The possible combinations of protocol for backup are SSH Telnet, SSH TFTP, Telnet TFTP, SSH STP, SNMP TFTP. So backup is more like a password. Sorry, credentials are more like passwords, where it's very important to configure the proper credentials to make sure that network configuration manager works properly while taking care of its functionalities. So here's how it works. So network configuration manager will establish a channel between itself and the device. So we have this communication channel. The configuration backup commands will be sent to the device. The device will receive the configuration backup commands, and it will send its corresponding configuration file. And that file will be encrypted and stored in network configuration manager's database. So this process is basically the same for all other credential protocols. So for SSH SCP, how it works is SSH will send the configuration commands, and the file transfer will happen using an SCP. This will be received. The file will be received by an STP server, which will be encrypted and stored in the database. So this process is the same for SSH Telnet TFTP, but for SNMP TFTP, there won't be any communication channel. SNMP request will be sent, and upon receiving the SNMP request, the file transfer will happen using TFTP. Upon receiving the file, Network Configuration Manager will encrypt it and store it in the database. So how to provide these credentials? So on the left-hand side, you can see the screen, a telnet or a putty screen. So whatever configuration credentials you're giving to log into a device, the same credentials can be used in Network Configuration Manager. So here's an example which shows the execution by directly going to the enable mode. So here's the username, password, and only these three are required for certain devices. So in that case, only these have to be given. Here's an example for 3-com router. So once you give the credentials, you need to test if those credentials are proper. So in that case, you can just try to send the configuration file. And if a configuration file is received, then it means the credentials are properly configured because NCM has acknowledged the fact that this particular configuration file has been received from the device. So let me show this to you in the UI. Go to the inventory. So here you can see different devices, and to provide credentials, click on the key symbol, and here you can provide a credential. So this is an example. So the credentials have already been given. Yeah, you can change it in case the credential is different. Also, here you can choose a protocol, and you need to, if you have a profile, you can select a credential profile from the drop down. For example, a lot of Cisco devices will have the same credentials. So in that case, you can just create a particular credential profile which can be useful for all the devices. So you don't have to give the credentials again and again. You just have to give it once in a credential profile, and once the credential profile is created, you can use that profile again and again for devices which have the same configuration commands. So that's how you give credentials. In case you want to create a new profile, you can create it directly from here by clicking on new profile. And yeah. So this is how you give primary credentials. You can also give additional credentials by giving in the TFTP, SCP server public IP, SSH port, login prompt, password prompt, enable user prompt, etc. So also guys, in Network Configuration Manager's UI, we have how to and FAQ. So in case you have any problem while applying credentials or with any other operation, you can just directly click on the links and read how you can do it. So during this whole credential process, you'll face certain errors, such as credentials are valid, but file transfer has failed. So this can be because the TFTP or STP server may not have started. So in that case, go to NCM server settings and check if the TFTP or STP servers are in running mode. So yeah, go to settings. Click on general settings and choose server settings. Here you can see if the server for a particular device is in running mode, and also you can check if the ports are properly configured. If the status does not show running, you can stop service and restart it again and then try again later. Let's move on to configuration backups. It's very important. As a network administrator, you know how important a backup file is. Even if your entire system crashes, you'll still have your backup safe and sound. So with Network Configuration Manager, you can backup configuration files in 3 different ways. You can schedule the backup process, you can backup configurations in using the real-time change detection, and you have instant backups. So instant backups is the easiest backing up method, and this can be useful if you want to back up like a few devices instantly. 1 or 2 devices or 3 or 4, any device can be instantly backed up by clicking on it, choose the three-dot icon and give the backup option. Network Configuration Manager will immediately trigger the configuration backup. Also, you'll be able to see the backup operation status here. In case of failed backup, you'll be able to see this, and if the backup is successful, it will be marked with a tick mark. Next one is real-time change detection. So I'll show you how real-time change detection works. So for example, real-time change detection can be very useful even if you're not physically present in your network environment. Suppose there's a device and network configuration manager is watching over that particular device. And when you're not present, a different operator logs into a device, makes a configuration change and logs out of a device. Network configuration manager will immediately take a backup. So interesting, right? Let me show you how this works. So suppose a user logs into a device, network configuration manager will immediately get a notification, a syslog notification that a user has logged into a device. So network configuration manager will assume that this particular device may have entered a device to make a change. So it will wait for the logout message. Once the user logs out, NCM will receive a message saying this particular user has logged out. So network configuration manager will immediately take a backup, assuming that a configuration change may have been made. And then network configuration manager will compare the latest backup after the logout message with that of the most recent backup. So with the most recent configuration, it will check for changes. If there are changes detected, the configuration file will be stored and encrypted in the database. If no change is detected, then the backup configuration will be discarded. So for this to work, it does not work on all the devices unless you enable change detection in it. So in case you want certain devices to be always under your control, you can select the devices, click on the three-dot icon and give enable change detection. So any change made to those devices will not go unnoticed, and a backup will be taken if there are changes made. So moving on to the errors which you might be facing during this enable change detection process. So you might encounter an error which says we don't support change detection. So in that case, you might have to enable syslog by connecting the device and executing the enable syslog commands manually. In case this does not work, if change detection is not supported, you can contact NCM support. So yes, we are receiving a lot of questions and our panelists are answering it. So in case you have your questions, guys, please type it out and our panelists will be able to give you an answer immediately. So another possible error during real-time change detection is mismatched ports and the server settings may not be properly begun. In that case, you can just go to the server settings like we saw earlier and change the values. Sorry, not the values. You can ensure to restart it again. So schedule backup. Network configuration manager is very useful in scheduling backups. So this is an interesting thing. Most of us cannot, remember what's happening and how many devices need to be backed up. In that case, you can just schedule backups. So for example, you have a device and it needs to be scheduled hourly once. You can use network configuration manager schedule option to schedule it hourly. Let me show this to you. Click on settings, schedule, and oh, okay, sorry. You can go to the inventory and directly schedule it. So click on the device, click on the three dot icon. Sorry, this is for backing up devices. Yeah, you can go to schedule by going to settings, schedule, and you can add a schedule. So you can give a name, and then you can choose the type of schedule you want. We have schedule options for other operations as well. For now, we are scheduling the backup operation. You can choose a single device or a group of devices. So this is how you choose individual devices. Click on the device and add it. In case you don't want these, you can just click on these and add it back to available devices column. You can select the device group where you can choose which device group to schedule. Also, you can receive notification when there is a failure while backing up, or if you want to exclude a particular difference from the notification, you can enable this option. And here you can provide the schedule time. We have hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, and once a time scheduling. Once you provide a suitable time, you can click on save. So this particular schedule operation will automatically run, and you will receive a notification that NCM has started the backup operation as a part of its daily scheduling regime. A schedule can fail if the credentials are incorrect, so make sure that the credentials are properly configured. And then there are other reasons why a schedule may fail. It can be because the credentials are changed or invalid, or you can also check if the ports are blocked. Also make sure that the server settings are proper, and if it's a configuration file and if it's huge, then the timeout value may be a reason. For example, it can be too small a value for a large file to get transferred. So in that case, you can go to the timeout value by going to device templates and you can extend it. Also, there can be unsupported backup commands. So in that case, you need to add it to the device templates. The backup commands, once they are added, you can try scheduling it. Or you can try taking backups and it won't fail again. Let's move on to change management. Change management is very useful because you will be able to see what kind of change is made in your network, who has made the change, and at what time a change has been made. So you can see the number of lines which have been modified, deleted, and added with configuration difference. Also, you can see what the particular trend is for the past 1 month. So how many changes have been made to my configuration file from May 20 to June 20? That can be done easily with change management. So this is a diff view where you can compare different versions of the same device or different configurations of different devices. And the colors red show that the particular lines have been deleted. The green shows these new lines have been added. Purple shows the modifications. I will show this to you in the UI. So let's go to the UI, click on the inventory, and to see what sort of changes have been made in a device, click on the device and NCM will take you to the device snapshot page. Click on configuration details. Here you can see when a last change was made, who has changed, and if it's an unauthorized or an authorized change. You can click on and find how many differences it has with the baseline version and how many differences it has with the previous version. So here I've clicked on it. So here I can see that in that particular configuration, this change has been made, and this is the latest modification. And these are the changes that has happened when compared to a baseline version. Baseline version is nothing but the most stable version. It's like the mother version. So there are like so many different versions which happen after some baseline version. So when compared to a baseline version, this particular configuration has undergone a lot of changes where a lot of green lines we can see, sorry, you can see a lot of green lines and purple lines and sorry. So here you can see the number of lines that have been modified. You can exactly see what changes. And then here, clicking on delete, you can see the deleted lines. You can see all the three together or one by one. This is just the difference, guys. And if you want to see all the lines, then click on all lines. The configuration will load and you'll be able to see exactly at which line the configuration change has taken place. So this is the view. Also, not necessarily you need to like go into a snapshot page to find the difference. You can go to the inventory, click on plus minus symbol. Here you can give a device name, device IP here, and two different device comparisons can be made by selecting versions of it. So between this device and this device, these are all the changes. These are the differences. So many differences because those are two entirely different devices. So this is how the view works. So let's move on to our next topic, which is firmware vulnerability management. Firmware vulnerability management helps you to see all kinds of vulnerability in your network. And you can use the CVE details to see what is the best remedy for that particular vulnerability. And you can ensure that the vulnerability is removed. So here you can see firmware vulnerabilities. So these are the total vulnerabilities. Here, NCM gives a gist of what's happening in your network, how many vulnerabilities are there in your network, how many vulnerabilities require immediate attention, and the exploits available. Exploits are nothing but patches. Sorry, these are the exploit patches which tells you that that particular thing can be, this particular device has, vulnerabilities and the easily an intruder will be able to get into your system. So these are the vulnerabilities which have been discovered in the last 7 days. You can change the number. You can give a time zone such as last 30 days. Okay, no new vulnerability has been discovered in the last 30 days. So here are different ways of viewing a vulnerability. So according to this, under all vulnerabilities, it will be by default listed as vulnerability IDs. So under this particular ID, you can drill down to see the number of devices which have the same sort of vulnerability. So under CVE 2017122240, we have so many devices having this vulnerability. So in that case, you have to ensure that a particular patch is given. So if you click on the CVE ID, it will show what that particular vulnerability is about. And here you can see the reference links which provide the patch to fix the vulnerability. So you can go to the external link and fix it. You can also report how this vulnerability is being handled in your network. So let's say you just reported it, you can just keep it as reported. If you have confirmed a vulnerability, you can give the confirm option, and there are several options for this. So by clicking on the CVE ID, you will be able to see the patch for every vulnerability under it. And you can also see the base code 10. Base code 10 denotes that this vulnerability is very severe and it needs immediate fixing. Let's move on to exposed devices. Exposed devices are nothing but it's a way in which NCM shows the number of devices which have vulnerabilities in them. So let us say this particular device, drill down, we see that this one device has so many vulnerabilities. And you can also see the base code. And once you click on it, you will be able to provide the patch. So this is a version-wise sorting where you will be able to see how many vulnerabilities a Cisco device of a particular version has. So you can see those vulnerabilities. And you can also sort it based on critical vulnerabilities, important vulnerabilities. Once you give a request update, Network Configuration Manager, we will be able to update your network environment with the latest details, latest vulnerability data, you can say. We have advanced CVE search where you can type your CVE ID and get a global count of um, what vulnerability is and how you can fix it. We have a vulnerability DB sync. So by default at 2 a.m. this DB will be your DB will be synced with the latest vulnerability data, and you can also give a schedule time at which you want to sync your network with the data from NIST. You can also import the data manually, and you can also immediately sync it. Yeah, we saw this vulnerability data sync where vulnerability data from NIST can be synced. And let's so move on to the last part of today's training, which is disaster recovery. What is a disaster in network devices? A continuous performance degradation or a sudden outage or an unexpected security breach can be termed as a network disaster. How to be prepared? Network configuration offers so many ways to be prepared. So baseline configuration stands first in the list. So let's see what a baseline configuration does. Baseline configuration we saw earlier, it is the most stable configuration version. It's tested and you know that this particular version is reliable. So you can name it as a configuration baseline, and in case of a disaster, you don't have to rack your brains thinking about which configuration file will be most suitable at such an hour. In that case, you can just directly import or upload a baseline configuration to your network device and bring it up and working again. Go to the inventory, click on a device, click on the three dots and give label configuration. So I'm going to give this name a baseline. This is the name I'm giving. So it means during a disaster, I'm going to apply this version 192.168.50140. Click on save. So this name will be saved, and then during a disaster, you just have to click on it and give upload configuration option. So during that, you might come across an error which says we don't support file upload. It can be due to the protocol being telnet or SSH. You know, these are not file transfer protocols. So make sure that the protocol is in SCP or TFTP and try again. But if you encounter this error, even when SCP or TFTP protocol is used, then device vendor may support, but NCM device template may not have been updated with the particular command. So in that case, you can edit the commands by going to NCM device templates, or you can contact us for more support. The next one is startup running configuration sync. Startup configuration is a configuration which appears when a device is rebooted, and running configuration is the present configuration file. So for example, you have a Cisco device and it has a lot of bugs, and you are currently writing a code to fix all the bugs. And you are doing it on the running configuration and you are failing to save it or sync it with the start configuration. In that case, when there's an immediate shutdown or an outage, and when the device reboots, the configuration which contained the patch fix or the bug fix will not be there because it may not have been synced. So all the bugs will reappear. So in that case, it's very important to sync your startup configuration with running configuration. It is very helpful because Network Configuration Manager tells you that these two are not in sync. So by by configuration conflict, you'll be able to detect that the running configuration and the start configuration of a particular device is not in sync. In that case, you just have to click it and select the three dot icon and give sync configuration. Once you give sync configuration, this particular operation will begin and your running configuration will be synced with the start configuration. Yes, so you might encounter an error, which is upload failure. So change the timeout value in device template and try again. Also ensure that the FTP and SCP servers are running. Change happens, but startup running conflict is not detected by NCM in real time. It can be because real-time change detection may not have been enabled in that particular device. So we saw earlier how to enable real-time change detection. So you can go and enable it. And sometimes if syslog is not supported, that whole thing won't work. So the startup running conflict will be detected and reported after the next successful scheduled backup or manual backup operation. Let's move on to change notifications and rollback. So change notifications is it's an interesting feature because as a person who's very paranoid about what's happening in my network environment, I always want to be alerted as to what's happening now. At this hour, I want to know what's happening. So in that case, I can configure the change notifications. Go to settings. No, change management is right on the horizontal tab. So yeah, these are all the alerts, the pending request, approve request. So yeah, click on the plus symbol and here you can give a notification name. And you can give the notification. I want this notification for when a configuration, running configuration is changed for this particular change type. And you can give it an email notification where you can provide your mail address. So to your mail address with a particular subject line, a message will be received saying that this particular thing has happened here. You can also use SNMP traps, syslogs, trouble tickets, etc. And we also have rollback. For example, if your network administrator is making bulk configuration changes and you don't want these changes to be, to create an impact on certain devices, you can give the rollback to previous version option. So once you associate a device and give a rollback to previous option, no change will carry forward. It will just be diverted to the previous version. So you can choose the devices for which you want to trigger this notification. Also specific devices can be given. Click on the device, click on this option and click on save. So whatever devices you've chosen, change notifications will be sent at that particular time. So the last thing is export configuration. Network Configuration Manager will allow you to export the entire configuration in a readable format. So even if your entire system crashes, you'll still have these configuration backed up in NCM server. So you can schedule export configuration option. So let's go there. Settings, global settings, and export configuration. So at this, but you can schedule the export configuration option, and you can choose the devices and click on save. So at the scheduled time, your configurations will be exported and stored in this particular destination. And if you want to export everything right now, you can give export configuration now option. So yeah, guys, thanks for patiently listening. So that's all about today's session. So we have this Captura review collecting thing. And if you have experience using Network Configuration Manager, you can write a review about it and get a $25 gift card. By clicking on write a review, you can just go to the site and give us your honest opinion about Network Configuration Manager and stand a chance to win a $25 gift card. Also, very important, I wanted to tell you that we have a free seminar coming up. in November. It happens region wise, and you all know that half of us are working from home and half of us are working from office. So there will be a lot of confusion and challenges which might hinder the productivity of your IT organization. So we are going to address the challenges and see how we can overcome it. So even if you have a dual workforce with half your employees working from home and half your employees working from office, or if you are one of them working from a different location, then this seminar will be very, very useful for you. So you can register for the seminar and see how you can address the challenges and overcome it. So yeah, and the second part will be on November 5th on the same time, and we'll be discussing very important features like compliance, role-based access control, how you can use network configuration managers, reporting mechanism, and then we'll see how to schedule configuration tasks and how to automate certain configuration commands using config-lets. So do not miss it, and let's keep in touch. If you want any support, write to us at ncm-support@managengine.com and check out our help videos, which will be very useful for you. You can go to Manager Tech videos on YouTube. And we also have forums where we discuss what's happening and what are our latest enhancements, etc. So thank you guys. Let's meet on November 5th, and I hope you found this session useful. So have a nice day. Thank you.